The thermometer says about 22 degrees. It's Saturday, and I'm thinking about transplanting some of my little plants. It was about a week ago that I did the video and showed you how the plants looked, how they were sprouting, my little seedlings, and now here it is a week later. It is the last week of January, and I'm going to plant some of these outside. So I don't recommend planting things outside this early in the season. It's still January, but I want to get them out of the house, and I'm only going to be planting greens, and I'll show you why I'm willing to plant them. So here is one bed that we have prepared. You can see here that we have some loose stuff. We've tilled this a couple of times, but this is almost frozen. It's pretty hard. I'm going to have to dig and move this around. The only reason that we would consider putting plants out this time of year is this covered row here. Let's see how they're doing. Yeah, a little wilty, but they still feel pretty good. Oh, these are actually, the white on here is actually ice crystals that are on the leaves. And here, these leaves also are frozen. Philip transplanted these yesterday. Let's see if they perk back up. That will tell us whether or not we can transplant out here. And here's kale. The white crystals are ice. So this morning I looked at the bed and I found when it was 22 degrees outside, the greens actually had ice crystals on them. And the Napa cabbage here, Chinese cabbage, actually had frozen leaves. And yet now they're totally fine. They're happy, they're growing, and what we've noticed is under the row cover, as soon as it gets warm, they start growing. So the frost doesn't seem to hurt them. Here's the purple lettuce. And here's the lettuce that Philip planted yesterday. So some of it, you see, is limp, kind of wilty, but it appears to still be alive. And this is, it's sitting up. So we think we can go ahead and plant more greens out in our second bed here. Over here is the kale. This is kale. It's a little limp, but it survived 22-degree weather last night and getting ice crystals. Our second bed here is not fully composted. It's got a lot of organic matter. It has chipped up stuff that we did from our chipper. It has a lot of ground leaves. It has a little bit of dirt, all mixed in together. So it's not completely composted into dirt. And our question was whether or not we actually need to wait until it turns into dirt, or whether or not this would be sufficient to plant our plants in. So we're going to experiment and plant some of the same things that we planted over here in this bin that had dirt in this bin that is not fully composted. Let me show you some of the greens. These are the ones that I'm going to be planting. I'm going to go ahead and plant the arugula compared with what it was last week. This is what it's looking like this week. It looks pretty good. If I see that I have 3 plants in there, if I can separate one, I'll go ahead and plant only 2 of them. Normally I would keep it inside a little bit longer, but the roots are already down to the bottom of the container. So I can see through the clear plastic that the roots are already down to the bottom. So I might as well go ahead and put it out. The same was true with the spinach. You remember the spinach last week. And this is what the spinach is like this week. It has grown a lot. Look at the back. You can see under how tall it's gotten here. It's lifted up off of the ground. I don't know if it will make it. It's got 2 plants here. If I can separate them and keep one inside and one outside, I will do that. Otherwise, I'll put these out, see if they survive, and if they don't, I'll go ahead and start new seeds right away. Here is our big experiment plant, the oak leaf lettuce that Mandy sent us. Half of this container, you remember what it looked like last week. This week, half of it was planted yesterday by Philip in the first bed. Now I'm going to plant the second half in the second bed, the bed without the fully composted soil. And we'll see if there's a difference and see if it survives. This lettuce has just done so well, it's big enough to eat. I'm going to go ahead and plant at least half of this. This is the Chinese cabbage, the Michelli Chinese cabbage. And you remember last week and this week. I know that the other strain of Chinese cabbage that's over there froze and had ice crystals this morning, and yet the leaves are totally fine this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and put my chard out. It's really leggy. This soil was not garden bag soil, it was more soil out of the yard, so it's not going to be a surprise to these plants to be out where it's cold. I'll just go ahead and put them out. They didn't do as well as some of the other greens. Yesterday, Philip planted the demo kale, the kale from the demo garden that Mandy sent, and then this is the curly kale. And compared with last week, you can see this week the stems are much longer. So we'll put this out as well. And then last, the romaine lettuce. You remember last week and this week. I started it in this clear container. You can see the bottom. The roots are getting down there to the bottom and very intermingled. These I will probably just divide into groups and not try to separate each plant by itself. The goal now is to dig a hole in the bed, put a little bit of garden soil right in the hole where I'm going to put the plant, just to give it a chance, and then put the partially composted soil or material around it. And I'll cover it all over with a row cover, and we'll see if it survives. So we have here, I was able to take one of the spinach out and leave one in the dish. And I took about half of the Migg Chinese cabbage out and the rest there. So my greens are here in the second raised bed. I'm going to go ahead and give them a little watering to water them in, and then cover them with a row cover and see if they survive the cold night. It's supposed to get down to about 25 degrees tonight. Not quite as cold as yesterday, but we will see if they survive the transplanting. The greens are in the bed outside, and before I leave, I wanted to show you an update from last week on the little plants that we have. I've consolidated them now under one light, because there's just not enough. With those moved outside, there's just not enough for 2 lights. The other problem is, remember that the light that I had underneath the shelving unit there only went so high, and so now most of the plants, even in the space of a week, have gotten tall enough that they won't fit under that one. So here they are, here under this one light, and definitely the pecking order comes out here. So we have to decide who gets the best space. So in general, the tomatoes kind of got booted out. They're on the fringe now. And here are the Luffa. I showed you one last week, and because I needed another spot here, Luffa number 6 got booted clear down there because I don't have something else to fill in this space to bring it a little closer. But look at the size of these Luffa leaves. So last week, remember, they were just starting to get their first true leaves. And here, some of these Luffa not only have the first true leaf, second true leaf, but actually putting out more down here. So these are just doing great. This is supposedly a ground cherry, but I am suspicious it might be a weed. So it's here under the light just in case, but I'm waiting to see. Here's the celery. It did not go outside. I'm going to leave it inside a little bit longer. The asparagus, you can see how tall it is. I really wanted to show you this right here. You remember last week the artichoke, and now this week, look at it. There were some days where literally these leaves doubled in size 2 days in a row. It is a very unique looking plant. Those little teeth, looks like little shark. I had at least one artichoke seed that rotted, so I started another, and it's over here. I saw it starting to sprout, and you can almost see right there the white. See? So we'll see if that is up by next week. Here is the pepper plant that I was trying to get to sprout, and here is a second one that hasn't opened up yet. So they of course get the best spot here under the light. Here's the Napa cabbage that didn't get planted. If the other does well, then that will probably go out this week. I think that is most of the things I have inside. You can see I don't have a whole lot inside. Oh, I should point this out though. This was, if you remember from last week, the lettuce that was in a cup because it hadn't gone outside. I just couldn't put it outside, so I left it inside. I transplanted it into this pot. These leaves are big enough to take for a taco. So I have the oak leaf lettuce. I have one of the 2 spinaches. The spinach that I didn't plant, I went ahead and put in the pot here, and then I have some of the Chinese cabbage to fill this out. So I'll just leave those in a pot inside and see if they grow faster. So that's it for this week. And next week we'll see if the transplanted things outside survive, and see how this artichoke and the Luffa, how they grow. It's always great talking with you. See you next week.